You have rupees 40,000 and you're confused between the OPPO Reno 14 and the vivo V60. Well, you're not alone, my friend. I'm sure a lot of you are confused about the same thing. Which phone has the best cameras and at the same time doesn't compromise on the other aspects of the phone, like the design, the display, the performance, the software experience, all of those. So I'm going to solve that problem which a lot of you had and requested in the comments saying compare these two phones, and I'm going to let you know which one of these should you pick if you have the budget of 40,000 rupees. Alright, if you're watching me for the first time, I'm Ershad. This is Trakin Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Now let's start by comparing the design of both these phones, and the Reno 14 is definitely a smaller phone compared to the V60 because it also has a smaller display and a smaller battery. And therefore it's not like an apples to apples comparison. So if you want a bigger phone, then of course the V60 is suited for you. But if you want a slightly more compact phone, then the Reno 14 makes sense. However, the industrial design is completely different because what you get with the Reno 14 is a proper flat side and a boxy design along with very premium materials. So it's a proper glass sandwich design where you get glass on the back, glass on the front, and the center frame is actually made of metal or aluminum, which means that it not only looks very premium but also feels very premium to hold and use. As for the V60, it's got curves including a quad curve display, by the way, and you do get glass on the back and glass on the front, but the side frame is actually made of plastic, which is of course an inferior material compared to metal on the Reno. And since the Reno 14 is also a smaller phone, it's also lighter and slimmer technically compared to the V60. So the overall in-hand feel when you compare these two, I feel like the Reno 14 is better, but it's not like the V60 is bad either. Because of the curves, you do get very decent in-hand feel too. Now both these phones also do come with IP69 rating, which means that you do get the absolute best dust and water resistance in the industry right now. And the Type-C port at the bottom, unfortunately, is not the absolute best because it's a Type-C 2.0 port, which means that it's going to be slow. Now with respect to the glass protection on top of the display, what you get with the Reno 14 is Corning Gorilla Glass 7i. With Vivo, what you get is Short Sensation Core. So see, design-wise, it's very subjective. You can prefer either one of these two phones depending on what you like or what you prefer generally in phones. But when you look at it overall, I feel like the Reno 14 is a better package primarily because it's got more premium materials and definitely feels like it's more worth the money that you're paying for it. And if you feel like our videos are worth the money that you pay for YouTube Premium, if you do that is, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us your support. Now moving on to the displays, the Reno 14 has a 6.59-inch 1.5K resolution 120Hz AMOLED panel, whereas the V60 has a larger 6.77-inch Full HD Plus a 120Hz AMOLED panel, which means that you will definitely have better pixels per inch on the Reno 14 because you get more resolution and a smaller display as well. Plus, I have like a soft corner for the Reno 14 primarily because it's got a flat display and I love flat displays. Now, when we check the color accuracy of both these panels, I felt like the V60 actually does it slightly better primarily because it's slightly more neutral compared to the Reno 14. The good thing about both the phones, however, is that you do get support for HDR video playback on both YouTube and Netflix. Now, unfortunately, OPPO doesn't talk about the peak brightness numbers in HDR, or fortunately, because that number, can sometimes be a gimmick. Despite that, I felt like the Reno 14 actually does better HDR tuning on the panel compared to the V60. So in a side-by-side comparison, you can tell that the highlights are not blown out, the shadows are not too crushed, because the V60 actually has a brighter panel, so the highlights do get sometimes blown out. But I mean, that could be a problem or not depending on what you prefer. However, we prefer the Reno 14's HDR tuning. It's damn nice. Now, when it comes to the high brightness mode, I feel like outdoors, the V60 definitely is brighter than the Reno 14. So it's a win for sunlight legibility on the V60 compared to the Reno 14. And the PWM dimming rating on both is 2160Hz, which is fantastic because a lot of brands don't do that, but Vivo and OPPO do. And that's something that we really appreciate because low light flicker when you're watching content on high refresh rate displays is definitely a problem for a lot of folks who get headaches. But with a high PWM dimming rating like 2160Hz on both the phones, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. A part of the display is also the haptic feedback experience, and easily the Reno 14 is way better because of OHaptics. It's tighter, it's crisper, the vibration motor works much better. Now both the phones also do come with an optical in-display fingerprint scanner and they're very fast to unlock, not a problem at all. But one area where OPPO clearly beats Vivo is in the audio performance. Because firstly, the speakers sound way better on the Reno 14 compared to the V60. Don't let me say it, you guys take a listen to it for yourself. And secondly, if you're an audiophile, you will appreciate that the Reno 14 actually does come with both LHDC and LDAC support out of the box, both of which are not present on the vivo V60. Alright, now time to talk about performance, and here the Reno 14 inches ahead, primarily because you do get better specs. The Reno 14 setup is the MediaTek Dimensity 8350 LPDDR5X RAM type and UFS 3.1 storage. And with Vivo, what you get is the Snapdragon 7 Gen 4, which is definitely an upgrade from the Snapdragon 7 Gen 3 that Vivo has been using for the past 3 generations. But it's LPDDR4X RAM type and UFS 2.2 storage. Now, obviously, Vivo could have done better here. Reno just takes the lead and advantage. And that's also telling in the benchmarks because the Reno 14 easily beats the vivo V60 in both Antutu and Geekbench, as you can see for yourself. However, for the GPU stability, again, vivo V60 is more stable, but the Reno 14 had the better best loop score and the higher average frame rates as well. And that's very important because what you get with the Reno 14 is a better GPU with higher throughput, which means that you have more headroom for better performance in gaming. And which is why in gaming, when we tested it out, the Reno 14 is simply better because it supports 90 FPS in BGMI, while vivo V60 is locked at 60 FPS. And even in Genshin Impact, if you look at it, the Reno 14 actually does perform better with higher average FPS and lower temperatures as well. Now, I know that a lot of people were talking about the Reno 14 getting hot, but in our testing, we didn't notice that. Maybe for longer sessions, it must be getting hot, but we don't see a heating problem with the phone. Now, we also tested the network quality and the call quality performance of both the phones. We have nothing to complain about here. Fantastic on Airtel and Jio with excellent mobile data speeds and, a good support for 5G bands as well. You also get support for Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.4 and NFC on both the phones. Now, talking about batteries on both these phones, what you get is a 6500 mAh unit inside the V60 and a 6000 mAh unit inside the Reno 14. Now, while the V60 has a larger battery size, it doesn't necessarily translate to better battery life because both offer very similar screen on times, as you can see from the screenshots that we're sharing on the screen. So basically about 9 to 10 hours of screen on time is what you can expect from both these phones, which is fantastic, by the way. Nothing to complain about here. Interestingly, the V60 offers 90-watt charging speeds, which is faster than, of course, the 80-watt charging speeds offered by OPPO. But OPPO's technology seems to be better, therefore it charges faster than Vivo for sure. Also, it's got a smaller battery, so maybe that's why it's doing it. Now, the other thing about the battery is that you do get some software-specific features inside both, and you do get a battery health engine with the Reno 14, which is definitely nice because what you get is a smart charging feature, which basically ensures that after 80%, it charges slowly. You can also set a limit for the battery to charge only up to 80%, which is nice. With Vivo also, you can set to what level it can, charge up to, but you do not have the smart charging feature. So yeah, you can, play around with all of these settings and ensure that your battery life can, be enhanced. All right, now time to talk about the one parameter that most people care about when buying an OPPO Reno series phone or a Vivo V series phone, and that is the camera experience. But firstly, take a look at the camera spec differences between the two. We're putting up a chart right now. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You can take a look at it for yourself. But what matters are the pictures. So let's get down to that. So in the primary camera samples that we shot in both daylight and in low light at 1x, the OPPO Reno 14 pulls ahead, even though it has a physically smaller sensor, which was very surprising to us. The Reno 14 has better detail retention because it preserves sharper edges and definitely offers more textures if you can look at it at 100% crop. And this is particularly evident in low light at 100% crop because the textures look much better. However, surprisingly at 2x, which is an in-sensor crop, the V60 pulls ahead with slightly better details. And even at 3x, considering Vivo has a 3x optical lens, you get better detail retention on the Vivo compared to OPPO. And since OPPO has a 3.5x dedicated telephoto lens, we get superior detail retention on the Reno 14 at 3.5x. At 6x, once again, Vivo wins thanks to the 3x dedicated telephoto lens. However, again at 7x, OPPO wins because of that dedicated 3.5x telephoto lens. Which means that until now, there are certain zoom ranges where both of these phones actually excel at, but if you want to zoom further, say for example at 10x, then the Reno 14 pulls ahead. In this photo, you can see the fine detail very clearly on the Reno 14, especially in the areas like leaves and the grooves on the tiles. Vivo tends to sort of blotch out the details and therefore the Reno 14 is better. So for overall zoom performance, I would pick the Reno 14 over the V60. Now talking about the color reproduction, we compared Vivo's Zeiss mode to OPPO, and while both are not exactly accurate, I will pick the Vivo here. It's closer to neutral while the Reno 14 has slightly warmer tones. The skin tones are also more accurate on the Vivo V60. The Reno 14 has a slightly warmer cast. Also, if you notice, Vivo has actually nailed the color of the shirt here. Now, HDR is something that Reno 14 does better. Firstly, you get slightly better details from the shadows, and the V60 tends to artificially enhance the sky by making it blue, so it tends to get the colors wrong. the Reno 14 actually represents the sky more accurately. Now for portraits, Reno 14 is a clear winner. You get better details and better semantic segmentation. It doesn't matter if you compare the 1x, the 1.5x, 2x, 3.5x. Reno 14 is simply better at portrait shots. That said, you do get 8 Zeiss bokeh modes with Vivo, so if you want to tweak the bokeh in your portraits, you can do that, which is an advantage on Vivo. Now both the phones also ship with 8 megapixel ultra wide angle sensors, and they're just fine. The detail retention is just like how every 8 megapixel camera works. It's average both in daylight and in low light. However, the HDR performance on the Reno 14 with the ultra wide angle camera is better than the V60. Alright, now selfies, of course, I'll pick the V60 here because it offers better skin tones and details both in daylight and low light, and of course even the HDR selfies look better. But for selfie portraits, I have to once again go for the OPPO Reno 14. You get better details and better semantic segmentation. Now when it comes to video recording, I will pick the Reno 14 because you get 4K 60 FPS from both the primary and the selfie camera, and the V60 can only do 4K 30 FPS videos from the primary and the selfie cameras. And whether you're shooting in daylight or in low light, the video recording quality, especially when it comes to the details, the stabilization, and even the HDR performance, is superior on the Reno 14. So if you take a look at the photography chops and the videography chops, while the V60 does have the hardware, Reno actually pulls ahead with very good performance, and it does better in video recording especially, which is a huge advantage. So surprisingly, the Reno 14 is the better camera phone than the V60. Alright, now time to talk about the software on both these phones. And what you get with OPPO Reno 14 is of course ColorOS 15 based on Android 15, and OPPO's promising 3+4 years of updates. With the Vivo V60, what you get is FunTouchOS 15 based on Android 15 once again, and Vivo's promising 4+6 years of updates, which is nice because you do get longer support. Now while Vivo does win on the software update promise front, I feel like the software experience itself is better on OPPO, for sure. And I've mentioned this multiple times before. And I don't want to repeat the whole thing over and over again, but the basic crux of it is that the design is more modern. You get faster, smoother animations, more importantly with parallel animations, which is also working properly on the Reno 14. You also get modern features like live activities, flux themes, all of those things. There's a bunch of things happening with OPPO that is not happening with, FunTouchOS 15 on the V60. Now both Vivo and OPPO do come with a bunch of preloaded apps. Some of those can definitely be called bloatware. OPPO does come with more preloaded apps. Thankfully, you can uninstall preloaded apps on both the phones, which is nice. Now, they also do come with the lock screen poster / magazine thingy that is on by default. You can switch it off as well. And of course, no software experience in 2025 is complete without talking about the AI features. And here's some interesting things that are happening too, especially with ColorOS 15, because what you get is AI Perfect Shot and AI Recompose, two features that I really love, especially the Recompose feature, because many a times I end up taking photos that look like very angled and stuff, and you can recompose and make that straight. And that's something that I've seen a lot of people using regularly as well. Now with the V60, you do not get these options. We also get a bunch of gallery-based AI features with the Reno 14, like the AI Unblur, AI Eraser, AI Reflection Remover. Plus there are some AI features like Call Summary, which is fantastic. Take a call, it'll summarize it for you, and you can also search within the summary to figure out if you've spoken about something with somebody and you remember it but vaguely, and then you can search for it. That's damn cool. Vivo doesn't offer these things. Vivo does have a few AI features, like for example, you get AI Smart Call Assistant, you get AI Smart Captions, you do get the AI Eraser feature, Reflection Remover, Image Expander, and AI Magic Move. I genuinely felt like OPPO's AI features are a little more, useful than Vivo's. Alright, so which phone is the better pick under 40,000 rupees? I don't really have to say it. By now, you have an idea. It is the Reno 14, and this time I have a clear winner. And the main reason for that is the performance is definitely better on OPPO, and you also get a software experience that's smoother, cleaner, more modern than FunTouchOS. The overall camera performance is actually better on the Reno 14 as well compared to the V60, and even the battery life is largely similar with similar charging speeds as well. So is there any advantage on the Vivo? Well, the one advantage on Vivo is that you do get longer software support, and design subjective, so you might maybe prefer the Vivo over OPPO, but that's about it. And let's not forget, the V60 has UFS 2.2 storage at about 38 to 40,000 rupees, which is not cool, Vivo. We should have gotten better performance, even if you did upgrade to Snapdragon 7 Gen 4. Alright, so what do you guys think of the verdict? Do you prefer the Reno 14 or the V60? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.